Although Marilyn Monroe is remembered again and again for being America's sex symbol, she had a huge impact on American history through her influence on sexual norms and feminine ideals during the 50s and 60s, and used her fame to champion civil rights and personal freedom causes. Monroe excelled in film and became an icon of attraction and fashion. She was a huge influence on the sexual revolution, as she defied traditional American views on female sexuality. Monroe also influenced the film industry, as her fight for autonomy over her own films and later owning her own production company greatly impacted female actresses to do the same. Looking past her fame, she also was a massive liberal, advocating for civil rights, gay rights, and anti-nuclear activism, and was very philanthropic. Norma Jean Baker was born in Los Angeles, California. Her childhood was full of instability and hardship. She was raised in foster care and orphanages, and she ended up being sexually abused. She grew up in orphanages due to her mother's deteriorating mental health. Her mother was always in mental institutions and struggled with schizophrenia. To make money after being freshly 18, Norma Jean Baker decided to begin modeling and quickly caught Hollywood's eye. Baker began using the name Marilyn Monroe as a stage name in 1946. She chose Marilyn Monroe because to her it sounded better for her acting career. The Marilyn part was inspired by Broadway star Marilyn Miller, and the Monroe part was her mother's maiden name. Monroe began her acting career in 1946 when she signed a short-term contract with 20th Century Fox. Her first film role was in 1947, with a small part in The Shocking Miss Pilgrim. While her early roles were small, she slowly gained recognition as she picked up more roles. Some early movies of hers that gained her acknowledgement were her performances in the films The Asphalt Jungle and All About Eve. Later she would be known as the Blonde Bombshell, solidified by her big roles in films like Niagara, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and How to Marry a Millionaire. She became one of the most popular sex symbols of the 1950s and early 1960s and was influential on the era's sexual revolution. The sexual revolution of the 1960s was a period of significant shifts in societal attitudes and behavior related to sex, marriage, and relationships. It was a time when people challenged traditional norms about sexuality and advocated for greater sexual freedom. The revolution was influenced by factors like the introduction of the contraceptive pill, changing social norms, and the growth of feminist and countercultural movements. Monroe's alluring it-girl image challenged the traditional expectation that women should be modest and quiet about their sexuality. She helped shift how society viewed femininity and sex. Marilyn Monroe had a big impact on pop culture. She became super famous for her look, red lipstick, bouncy blonde hair, and tight clothes, and that style became her signature. Her image was mass-marketed across films, advertisements, art, and magazines, making her a product and promoter of Cold War consumer culture. Even after her death, she's still a huge inspiration to artists, filmmakers, and fans. Monroe didn't just act in movies, she changed how women were seen in fashion and media. Her style and image are still copied today, and she's remembered as one of the biggest pop culture icons ever. Marilyn Monroe had a big impact on femininity. She defied old beauty standards by embracing her curves and sexuality, paving the way for body positivity and other women's self-acceptance. Monroe proved that being sexy and being smart could go together, and that femininity didn't mean being weak. By using her sexuality on screen and also fighting for control over her own career, she pushed back against traditional gender roles. Marilyn showed the world that being feminine and also sexual wasn't something to be ashamed of. Marilyn Monroe profoundly impacted the film industry by defying typecasting. Typecasting is when an actor keeps getting the same kind of role over and over again because they did it well once. Monroe was known for playing a variety of characters. At first she mainly played the dumb blonde, but later in her career, she started showcasing her comedic and dramatic talents. She broke away from the mold of being just a sex symbol and demonstrated her ability to nail any role given to her. Her dramatic performances, like in Bus Stop and The Misfits, proved this. Monroe also pushed boundaries of what a woman could do in film, and influenced the way women were depicted on screen. Marilyn Monroe paved the way for other women to take control of their careers and be recognized for their talent and intelligence, rather than mainly for their looks. Her success as both a producer and actress serves as an enduring model for contemporary women in the film industry. Breaking free from the constraints of the Hollywood studio system, Monroe demanded greater control over her roles, salary, and creative direction. By founding her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions, she made a bold move that challenged the film industry norms, as it was a male-dominated field. This decision not only allowed her to shape her own career, but also demonstrated that actresses could successfully negotiate for better contracts and greater artistic freedom. Her achievements marked a step toward increased female autonomy in Hollywood and opened the door for future generations of women in film to claim their place in positions of control. Marilyn Monroe was a vocal advocate for civil rights, particularly over racial equality and gay rights. She spoke out against racial segregation and stood by her gay friends, even when it could have hurt her career. Monroe got Ella Fitzgerald booked at the Macambo Club, despite the club's policy of only booking black artists who were considered beautiful to the scrutinizing public. This act of friendship occurred in the midst of the civil rights movement and could have hurt her career, but she did it anyway. Beyond civil rights, Monroe was also politically active, attending rallies against anti-communist fervor and supporting the Committee for a Sané Nuclear Policy. Marilyn Monroe was affiliated with many other organizations too, mainly focusing on charitable causes and supporting children and struggling actors. She worked with organizations like WAIF, which placed abandoned children in homes, the Milk Fund for Babies, and the Arthritis and Rheumatism Foundation. She also donated to St. Jude's Hospital and established funds for children's welfare organizations. Additionally, she was involved with the March of Dimes, a charity focused on helping children. Marilyn Monroe received lots of awards during her career, including Golden Globes, Magazine Awards, and European Film Award. Monroe was much more than just a pretty face. She helped reshape the way we think about fame, femininity, and sex. In the 1950s, when women were expected to be quiet, proper housewives, Monroe refused. And even though she didn't lead a political movement, all of her choices challenged traditions of the time period. She proved that a woman could be both feminine and strong, that sex appeal wasn't something to be ashamed of. Monroe changed the 50s and 60s, and not through grand speeches or riots. She changed it by living in a way that pushed boundaries and made room for new ideas about beauty, freedom, and what women could be. In her own way, she helped rewrite the story of American culture, one red lipstick smile at a time.